All right, 10, 9.
Silently.
Welcome to Life in the Fast Lane, your weekly NASCAR handicapping show. I'm your host, Steve Merril, and we are live as we are every Wednesday. This is Wednesday, July 15th, 2020. It's 2 p.m. Eastern, and we are here to do a recap of Kentucky.
Show is perfect later, boys.
And more importantly, we are going to analyze this Sunday's race at Texas. By the way, a little bonus segment in the middle of this show. We're going to quickly look at tonight's Bristol All-Star race as well. So if you're joining us live today on Wednesday, as many of you do, we will have some info for the Bristol All-Star race tonight on Wednesday. But more importantly, we're going to dig in deep to this Sunday's Texas race for the Cup Series. So those of you that are watching it later in the week on archived on YouTube and many other channels will get tons of winning information. And speaking of winning information, let me bring Rocky Atkinson in first as he won again. A nice winner with Kurt Busch, I believe, on Sunday. Rocky, give us your stats for the season. Just fantastic numbers at sportsmemo.com.
Past couple weeks, I'm documented 100% with my NASCAR picks. 5% did cash on Sunday. Kurt Busch, even money over Alex Bowman. I'm 74-40, 65% the last 3 years with all my NASCAR picks. 25-14, 64% this year in NASCAR. I hit 71% last year in NASCAR. 5% plays are now 6-1, 86% on Sports Memo since I joined up this year after the Corona hit.
I'll tell you what, those numbers are not too shabby. You know, even with less sports, because I know you're a baseball and basketball guy. You're about a week away from baseball, as am I. 2 weeks away from the NBA. We got some football around the corner, hopefully. But yeah, NASCAR's been patting the bankroll, to say the least. And by the way, viewers, great offer I want to give out to you right now for both Rocky and Andy Lang this weekend. Promo code. We got a promo code for you. We didn't have one for you last week. Hey, we don't have these every week. That's why you got to take advantage of them when we do. Another sweep by Rocky last week. Use this promo code to save $100 this week on a full season, 1 year. Not a full season, a 1 year. That's this season and next through the middle of next year of NASCAR. It's normally $4.99. It's just $3.99. It's $100 off when you use code TX2020. TX2020 gets you a $100 discount for the next full year, 365 days of NASCAR best bets from Rocky Atkinson at sportsmemo.com and from Andy Lang at wagertalk.com. Speaking of Andy Lang, I want to bring you in, Andy. How was your weekend with Kentucky? And maybe give me a thought on the race as well as we recap.
You know, normally when you're hitting over 65% of your NASCAR bets, you're in, elite territory, and I'm second to Rocky on this show. So I got to step up my game. Honestly, one of the things I love about Wager Talk is just how open all the handicappers are. And I did not do a very good job this weekend. I did it in golf and NASCAR. I went 2-3 in both, which is ho-hum. I hit an underdog, hit a couple underdogs in golf, but Sunday night, I went back and looked, and I made some bets that were pretty uncharacteristic for me. My handicapping slipped a little bit. It happens to all of us. But I wasn't happy with some of the bets that I put out. So I apologize to everyone that followed. I made some adjustments in some of the ways that I looked at this week's race and some of the drivers, and I realized where my mistakes were that cost a couple losses. So it won't happen again. 2-3. Honestly, with how crazy that race was, I could have been 0-5 or 5-0 or 2-3. I mean, that field flipped a couple of times. So 2-3 in a race that could have easily turned out really good or really bad is just one of those. We'll move on to the next race. So it was exciting towards the end, that's for sure. But for us gamblers and handicappers, a few more gray hairs.
Well, and it's important, of course, to analyze these races a little more so than maybe we do other ones because Kentucky is the epitome of a cookie-cutter mile-and-a-half speedway, and we're going to have a lot of races like this. In fact, on a normal season, almost half of the races are cookie-cutter speedways in that 1 to 2 mile range. The majority of them were the 1.5 miles, like Kansas, Chicago, Charlotte, somewhat, and Kentucky is premier evidence of that. So we saw once again Harvick and Truex in the lead on the final lap for the win. Blaney extremely fast. My top guy this week was actually Blaney in the head-to-head matchups once again. I thought he found another way to ruin a fast car when his gear shift didn't work early in the race. And even with not being able to attach a bungee cord to hold his gear shift, he still might have been the driver to beat. but I got to throw it out to Cole Custer, because if you guys recall last week, and I meant to go look back on this, Andy, as we did the show, we were talking about those long shots. And I said, boy, look at this middle meaty part here of the Andy Lang Rocky sandwich, because you guys were on each end of it. I said, any of these guys could cash. And then the one you said, well, maybe not Cole Custer, I think, out of the 6 I mentioned. And I said, yeah, you're probably right. So you talked me out of that one. No, but Custer was, maybe 60-1, I think, when we were talking about it. And it's the first time, by the way, that a first-year rookie has won since 2016. And that was Chris Buescher who did it 4 years ago. So Custer will be in the playoff chase as of now. And really remarkable. Rocky, what were some of your takeaways at Kentucky? I mean, once again, the usual suspects were there. Custer, of course, is Harvick's teammate, and we know Harvick's been the best driver in these type of tracks. But we've been talking a lot about Reddick and Christopher Bell. I've mentioned Custer occasionally. I said he's kind of the third guy looking good at times as a rookie. What a fantastic rookie class. Rocky, any other takeaways from Kentucky that might transfer to those mile-and-a-half speedways coming up?
Well, to me, Kentucky was a fairly boring race until the very end there. Eric Almirola dominated early, and he's a Harvick teammate as well. He won stage 1. Keselowski came away with a win in stage 2, and rookie Cole Custer got the overall win for his first Cup win of his career. Almirola, he led the most laps, leading 128 out of 267 for the race. Custer only led 5 laps, but he led the one that counted the most, which was the last one. So congratulations to Custer and his team, that rookie team, with their win there.
By the way, I'm looking at some of the offshore odds from last week. This is probably the best book as far as big numbers, but he went off at 250-1. Wow. 250-1 at one sportsbook.
250-1? That's ridiculous. That's crazy.
It was 5 dimes. Yeah, Sunday afternoon at 5 dimes, he was 250-1. I'm looking at it because I log these odds every week. Now, we talked about, I think DraftKings during the show, in some of the New Jersey books, he was maybe 60-1, but yeah, he was 250-1. Even when we did the show last Tuesday, the day before we did the show, he was 220-1 at 5. He opened. So nobody bet him. I mean, there wasn't any money on him there at a sharp book. So no. That tells you all you need to know, I guess. But 250-1. I mean, we were joking about him at 60-some-to-1 on the show last week, and I said he had a chance, and maybe not. 250-1. I think we all
250-1. That would have had my attention.
Yeah. So amazing, just totally amazing. I mean, Reddick went off at 80-1. Bell went off at 100-1. Those are some names ahead of him. So this is a good rookie class this year. Hey, I mean, we're talking about the recap here. We really have to say to the viewers, this translates to Texas this weekend. That's another mile-and-a-half I forgot to mention, another cookie-cutter track. So I love how NASCAR doesn't have practice times, but they're scheduling these races where we can take a lot of information from the previous week, like Pocono to Indianapolis. Be very interesting to see what Custer goes off this week, guys. Look at the odds. We'll check him here in a minute. He won't be 250-1, yet he also will not win this week. So I will give those two give-me's out right now. By the way, promo code, once again, TX2020, as in Texas, TX, because they're at Texas, TX2020 is your promo code for a $100 discount. There's not many times you can log on, watch a great handicapping show, get information that's going to help you make money, and they get a free promo code that puts a $100 bill into your bankroll automatically, and that's what this code does. TX2020, a $100 cash discount on the full 1-year, 365-day package of NASCAR Best Bets. Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com, Rocky Atkinson, SportsMemo.com. Rocky, I'm going to start with you real quick. Before let's do the Ricky Stenhouse Award, and then we'll look at Bristol. We're going to do a quick little segment for the All-Star race for those watching live today on Wednesday. But let's get to the unforced error, Ricky Stenhouse unforced error. I'm going to say Ryan Blaney's. Dave would have never even been in the top 3 with the gear shift. But Ryan Blaney's gear shift jumped out to me because he was my top head-to-head matchup. And I actually piggybacked off of what you did on the show last week, Rocky. You recommended Keselowski, another winning pick by Rocky Atkinson. He gave you Keselowski over Logano free on this show. And both Andy and I spoke about how much we liked that pick. The more I dug into the numbers, I ended up liking Blaney over Logano as my top matchup of the week. I got him anywhere from minus 105 to even money, whereas Keselowski was minus 130 over Logano. Blaney's actually had the best fastest lap times this year of all 3 Penske guys. He's been very inconsistent, though, for reasons like we saw Sunday where things happen, usually out of his control. But I have to nominate the broken gear shift as an unforced error. I thought it was going to cost him a chance to win. I don't think it did. he got the lead there late before Custer made the move. But Rocky, what are some nominees that you have? And then I'll throw it over to Andy for the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Unforced Kentucky.
Well, I have to agree with you, Steve. That was my pick as well, Ryan Blaney here. Blaney missed a gear early in the race, had to drive with one hand while holding the stick in fourth gear. His pit crew gave him the bungee cord, but he couldn't fix it while he was going around the track. He was feeling around trying to find something to tie it to, couldn't quite get it. He had a great car. Then when a lap or two left in the race, he went too far down on the apron. He started bouncing, and he bounced right up into Harvick, which could have caused a huge wreck. It didn't, however. It did cause some tire rub on Harvick's car. Blaney fell back to sixth place. So I'm going to have to go with Blaney this week for the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. award.
Yeah, what do you think, Andy? I mean, we give them to guys like, who we getting it to? Truex last week. We gave it to Elliott, almost went twice to Elliott. I mean, just because a guy almost wins the race doesn't mean he's immune to winning the unforced Ricky Stenhouse award. So what do you think, Andy?
There's only one nominee this week. So you have a multi-billion-dollar sport with multi-million-dollar sponsors, million-dollar cars and engines, the best engineers in the world, the best crew chiefs in the world, the best pit crews in the world. A gear shifter breaks, and they hand them a bungee cord that I can get at Walmart for $1.99. I have these bungee cords on my pontoon boat to tie up to other pontoon boats to party in the middle of the lake. This is what NASCAR has used to fix their car. It's reminiscent of, I can't remember who the driver was, but I remember they brought a Louisville Slugger bat to bend out one of the fenders. I didn't know that was legal NASCAR equipment allowed in pit road. But yeah, anytime you get handed a bungee cord and the pit crew just says, "Here, you fix it," and he can't fix it because his head's strapped in. He was just like fumbling all around. He was trying to get it. Most ridiculous looking thing. I mean, give me a break, NASCAR. A bungee cord. I mean, I don't know if you guys watch Formula One, but I'm a big Formula One fan. I just watch Formula One compared to NASCAR. It's like, can you imagine if Lewis Hamilton comes into the pits and his crew hands him a bungee cord and tells him to fix his Formula One car? Not a chance. So, I mean, this is a top 5 one all year for me. The bungee cord in the gear shift. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think that's the first time that all three of us have had one nominee and it's been unanimous. That was a good one because we got to have a little extra segment with the All-Star race, so it worked out well that Blaney made it easy for us this week.
Wait, hold on, guys. I got to fix my mouse here for a second.
No problem. Rocky, I was thinking, though, when what Andy was talking about when they showed, oh no, yellow flag is out. The yellow flag is out. We're gonna have to might throw the red flag on that one.
Okay, I got it. All right, we're good.
I was saying the yellow flag was out, but we might have to throw the red flag on that one. You look pretty entangled. See, here once again, we're live, of course, doing the show just like NASCAR was live, and they showed the sped up version of him trying to fix with the bungee cord. The only thing would have made it better, Andy, including that segment just now, would have been if we had the
circus music
or the old 1930s Charlie Chaplin chasing around the dog.
Oh God.
But yeah, I mean, we got a unanimous winner, folks, and it's a guy that probably should have won the race. That's what I love about, and that's what's appropriate about the Ricky Stenhouse Award, because Ricky Stenhouse always has the ability to win a race, but also completely blow up in a moment's notice. So, very fitting. So, yeah, I'm not sure what week we're in now. I know this is at least 10+ winners we've had. Andy's keeping track, but
oh yeah, we're gonna do. I have to say this. I had a friend give me a really, really great idea, and we're totally gonna do this. So. My friend suggested that we need to tweet out on our social media who wins this award every week and see if we can actually get some traction. And then I'm going to get a trophy. And in our last show of the year, we're going to pick the winner of the year and see if we can somehow send the trophy to whoever wins the best award of the year and see if we can somehow get one of these guys to come on and talk about winning. My buddy was like, you have to do it. I tune in just for this award, and absolutely, I think we might have to do that. So.
The question is if they're buddies with Ricky Stenhouse Jr., will it offend them that we're naming the award after him?
He had a great suggestion. He said, Your very first award was actually Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and he said our cop-out is we can say
I like it.
that we named it after the very first guy that won it. So that way we don't have to say we named it after you because of your previous performances. You were just the first winner of it. That's why we named it after you.
And if I recall correctly, it's because Ricky Stenhouse Jr. literally caught on fire on lap 1 of the first race back after the shutdown, correct?
There was that, and don't forget he hit a tire out of the hands of the crew member of Eric Almirola, and after that he went out and wrecked himself. So yeah, it was just an all-time performance for him.
Hey, speaking of Almirola, by the way, Rocky brought up a good point about him leading the most laps. He'd come into this race with 5 straight top 5s, and you mentioned how Stenhouse knocked the tire out. He'd had some bad luck in those early races. A guy we might be bringing up here in a few moments with Kentucky. But, all right, so for Kentucky, it's going to be Ryan Blaney, unanimous sweep, which automatically puts him in I think that automatically puts him in the championship round. That's kind of like getting a win during the regular season. You automatically advance to the playoffs. So I think there's a very good chance that we've just seen one of our Final 4, Final 6, whatever we decide, contenders for the championship award for the entire season. Bungee cord was good TV, and the fact that he was my top matchup of the week, I did not find it amusing whatsoever when he could not get that bungee cord on the gear shift. I was rooting for him, but just shows how incredibly fast he's been this year, guys. He's having these problems and still almost wins a race. So Ryan Blaney, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., unforced error. Let's quickly get to the All-Star race. First, a reminder that whether it's tonight on Wednesday or all the way through this Sunday, that promo code is good to go right now for Texas. TX, just like Texas, TX 2020, $100 discount. You're putting $100 in your bankroll, and then you're going to make even more money with these best bets from these guys for the next full year, 365 days, the next year of NASCAR best bets to build your bankroll, and you're getting a $100 booster to start with text promo code TX 2020, TX 2020, Rocky's picks at sportsmemo.com, Andy's picks at wagertalk.com. We're live on Wednesday afternoons. We always are. We will not be doing a bonus episode this Friday because the All-Star race isn't that great to bet or handicap, so we're not going to waste a whole show on it. We're going to get to Texas in a moment, very similar to Kentucky as we just talked about. But those of you watching us live today on Wednesday, July 15th, there is an All-Star race tonight. I haven't dug too much into it, guys, to be honest. I don't know if they're inverting the field or not, but there's 4 stages, and it's at Bristol for the first time. Rocky, I'll throw it to you, but one thing I'm going to point out from a handicapping perspective, as Andy, you mentioned this a few weeks ago, Bristol's the shortest track, but it's probably up there as far as the most random with the 2 biggest tracks, Talladega and Daytona. And now you've got an all-star race where points do not matter. It is literally like Talladega nights where if you're second, you're last. If you ain't first, you're last tonight, folks, because it's winner take all, and it's the shortest track ever. This is going to be an awesome race to watch. We might not be betting it heavy, but it's going to be fun to watch on a Wednesday night when nothing else is going on. And I think it'll be 3 or 4 guys that could wreck each other on the final turns. You just got to have to predict who that's going to be. With that said, I would stay away from Joey Logano because half the field wants to wreck him already. That's just my 2 cents worth. Let me know what you guys think. Maybe we play against him in a head-to-head matchup just for that reason. And I personally think Kyle Busch wins tonight. He's been extremely fast all year. We keep saying now you can't use him at these tracks. By the way, at Bristol earlier this year, he didn't win his best track. He was the fastest green flag average speed at Bristol. So I'm going to go with Kyle Busch as my play on. Joey Logano as my play against. What do you think, Rocky?
Well, this is going to be a good race to watch. I won't be releasing any picks on any premium picks, but it should be fun to watch tonight. Going to be a lot of beating and banging, like you said. I'm going to give you my top 3 that I'm looking at, and I'll give a free head-to-head here in just a moment. I'm leaning to Kyle Busch as well. 8 wins here, 13 top 5 finishes, 18 top 10 finishes in 30 races here in Bristol. Average finish of 13.1. Also going to look at Kevin Harvick here. 2 wins, 12 top 5s, 19 top 10s in 39 races in Bristol. Average finish 13.8 at this track. Also going to look at Brad Keselowski. 3 wins, 6 top 5s, 7 top 10s in 21 races. Average finish 16.5 here. As far as free head-to-head, they didn't have a ton of lines up earlier when I looked, but they did have this one. Harvick minus 125 over Ryan Blaney. I've mentioned Harvick and some of his results here. Blaney has no wins, 1 top 5 finish, 4 top 10s in 10 races here. He has an average finish of 20.7 here in Bristol. So I'm going to look to play against him and take Harvick over Blaney.
Yeah, it's such a random race. Truex will be starting from the pole tonight. Bowman will be second. Blaney's actually third. Haley fourth. I'm not quite even sure why Haley's in this race if I'm reading that wrong, but it's going to be interesting. And that's another thing, by the way, Custer was excited about. He said that in the post race last week. He literally qualified for this race 3 days before it happened by winning that race Sunday. He, of course, would have had a chance in the Open. And by the way, it does seem like a guy, I'll throw this to you, Andy, over the years at Charlotte at least, it's a totally different track, but two guys usually transfer in from the Open. It always seems like at least one of them is a contender, which makes it even more difficult to handicap because you don't even know who they are until literally an hour before the race starts. But I love the fact that this is an all-star race at Bristol. I hope NASCAR keeps moving it around. I'm hoping my home track, Richmond, might get in the near future. You know, they keep it at Charlotte over the years because they want to give the guys 2 weeks at home. I get that. But Darlington, Richmond, Bristol, Martinsville would be another great short track. I think we're going to see a fantastic finish tonight, but I think it's going to be a very random finish. Andy, what are your thoughts?
Well, I also have to point out they're using the new choose on the restart, which is going to be a huge deal. The drivers have been excited about it. I'll try and keep this short and sweet. So normally the leader gets to pick if they want the inside or outside lane, and then everyone falls in behind. Tonight, you get to choose where you want. So the leader picks, and then the next place can pick. I can either be on the outside, or if I want to tuck in behind the leader, I can do that. And then third place can pick. And then fourth place can pick. And then fifth place can pick. So if everyone likes, let's say, the inside line, you could end up with the guy who's in eighth place is starting right next to the leader. It's used on a lot of local races and sprint cars and modifieds. But they're going to test that out tonight. The drivers are excited. And, boy, you want to talk about something that can add some randomness into a race. As a handicapper, I hope they do not implement this in NASCAR. As a fan, I think it'll make it pretty interesting. But that's going to be something to watch out for. I guess the two guys I would look at, and I'm with Rocky. I'm not releasing any plays. I'm not going to bet anything on it. My money will be tied up in the UFC event tonight. Clint Bowyer loves this place. Great track record here, and so does Kurt Busch. So Clint Bowyer's in the All-Star Open, and if he just wins a stage or wins the race, he'll make it into the All-Star race, and he's starting ninth, and not a stacked field in there. I could easily see him muscling his way to the front. So I do like Clint Bowyer, and you talked about the advantage of the guys in the Open. They go out and race. Well, they get a little feel for the track. Maybe there's some nuances of the track that they have a little advantage. They got their game face on. They're up to speed. Their adrenaline's going. I don't think it's a coincidence that you see the winner of the Open race do good in the All-Star. So if someone like maybe a Byron or Bowyer or even DiBenedetto makes it in there, it would not surprise me to see one of them end up towards the front. But as far as guys that are just in the All-Star race, I'd look towards Kurt Busch.
I love where you're going with that, actually, about the Open helping you during the race. It's an excellent point, and that makes perfect sense why. By the way they're doing this is there's 3 segments in the Open, the winner of each segment, and then the fan vote all get into the race. So you could have anywhere from 1 to 4 people, because you could win all the segments and win the vote, which is unlikely. So anywhere from 1 to 4 drivers could transfer. You got to figure Bowyer will be one of them, and I would think he's going to win the fan vote. I mean, I don't think Chase Elliott Jr. are in the Open, so I think for sure Bowyer very well might win that vote.
Bubba Wallace is in the Open.
Is Bubba Wallace in it?
Earl leading.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, if you like someone like Wallace or Bowyer, they'll play him now because some books do have the odds up, but it's like baseball playoffs. Once they advance, their odds will be less. So if you are going to take a flyer with Bowyer, do it early. Wallace will win the fan vote hands down. I wish I could bet on that, actually. Find me some odds.
That'd be a great bet. Yes, will Bubba Wallace win the fan vote? Oh, yes.
If a sports book is sleeping on that one, hammer it right now, viewers. And this is your gift for watching the show live on Wednesday, because boy,
I'm looking it up right now. I'm looking it up right now. You guys go ahead. I'm looking this up.
That's a DraftKings prop right
there. I'm logging into DraftKings right now.
I know you are. I knew exactly where you were looking, because that's when they might be dumb enough to post. But that's an automatic winner. But it doesn't look like they're inverting the field from what I'm seeing here. So that's good from a handicapping perspective. There's going to be 4 stages at Bristol for the actual main event. That leaves a little less randomness to the finish. But I just think the fact these guys have no incentive to come in second, that there's going to be a wreck fest and it's going to be fun to watch. I thought one extra head-to-head matchup, by the way, when I looked last night, was Harvick was minus 130 over Kyle Busch even, and this hasn't been Harvick's best track. So I like Kyle Busch tonight. I'm willing to take a flyer with him here. I don't think he'll be afraid to wreck anybody, especially since he hasn't won a race this year. So we'll see how it plays out. It's going to be fun to watch. That's around 8:30 Eastern or so. The Open is at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's not on Wednesday. And that's FS1. It's their last race of the season, by the way. And I like FS1's coverage. So it's another reason to watch it because we won't have any more coverage. By the way, guys, one of my unforced error, and they kind of fixed it in NBC last week in Indianapolis, was the scoreboard. Not having the top 20 on the column going down was driving me crazy.
So bad.
They only had like 3 drivers at a time. And for a matchup, and handicappers like us that have matchups, and stuff, you want to know where drivers are, really painful. They did later in the race start to show more, but FS1's done a great, Fox in general has done a great job this year. So we'll enjoy the All-Star race tonight on Wednesday. Once again, we're going to look at Texas, though, for those joining us later in the week here, because this is where the money's going to be. As you guys said, not really worth putting much on. Sprinkle a fun bet if you want to watch this tonight, guys. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to hit it hard, hit Texas hard this weekend, and do so with the best bets from these guys that are both red hot. Andy's only second best this year because he's only hitting 65%.
Sorry.
We're going to work on that. We're going to work on that 2
bad.
out of every 3 winners, Andy. We're going to try to get you 3 out of every 3 winners like Rocky. But no, all jokes aside, these 2 guys are seriously cashing in NASCAR as they've done for year after year. I know I sound like a broken record every week. Well, we missed out on another winning week. It's too late to get on board. If you took that logic back in May, if you took that logic back in June, you've left a lot of money on the table. So we're going to give you a special to get you the next full year into next season, a full 365 days of NASCAR best bets. Rocky at sportsmemo.com, Andy at wagertalk.com. Promo code TX2020 for Texas. TX2020 gets you a $100 discount for the next year of NASCAR best bets. Andy, wagertalk.com, Rocky, sportsmemo.com. All right, Rocky, let's get into Texas. Give me a driver. We'll go back and forth a couple times here, guys. It's a cookie cutter 1.5 mile, usual suspects, I assume, Rocky?
Yeah, I'm going back with Kevin Harvick this week as my favorite to win it. Harvick has 3 wins, 11 top 5s, 22 top 10 finishes in 34 races here in Texas. Average finish 10.4 at this track, which is incredible. Over the past 6 races here, Harvick has 3 wins, 5 top 5s, and 6 top 10 finish, and an average finish of 2.8. Incredible. His lowest finish is 8 during that time. Harvick has also led the most laps over the past 3 years at 498, and the guy behind him isn't even close.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, we joke about Harvick every week, but you saw I wasn't laughing when you said it here because it really is. I don't want to say it's that easy. I'm such a contrarian when it comes to handicapping. It gets me in trouble sometimes because you really can't overthink Kevin Harvick. And then from a head-to-head matchup perspective, he's the most consistent guy on the circuit every week. So you've got him on a great track where he's great and he's consistent. It's impossible to play against him. You might not use him in every head-to-head matchup, but it's impossible to play against him on a track like this. And he was restarting in the lead with Truex last week to win the race on a similar track. The fact he didn't win it makes me like him even more this week because happy Harvick will not be as happy. Andy, I'll throw it over to you. I mean, I don't think the All-Star race result tonight on Wednesday will play any role. If Harvick wins it tonight, I think he'll still be hungry because it's a points race. But you never know. But, yeah, what do you think, Andy, as far as Texas this weekend?
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. My free pick on the show last week was Harvick over Kyle Busch. And, I mean, week after week, Kyle Busch cannot get this car set up right. This is a trend. This is not the exception. I know we keep talking. It's going to be Kyle's week one of these weeks, but he's just really struggling. He had the spring issue, and even that was one of the, I don't want to say lucky, but the final finish for Harvick was not indicative of how he was all race. It was not good. Kyle Busch was not good. Brad Keselowski was not good. These guys were back in the teens, and on the final pit strategy, which is part of racing, I get it. But if Brad doesn't get that lucky, he actually got 2 of them, he's back in the teens. My other favorite bet was Blaney over Keselowski, which I was pulling my hair out as I watched Blaney bang into Harvick and Truex at the end there. But I'm going to stick with Harvick and Blaney. I mean, these guys are just so good. I thought Blaney had the best car, top to bottom. Maybe Truex did. I thought he kind of got ripped out of a finish. But yeah, Harvick is just great at this track. I will give you a couple sleepers. Here's a shocking stat. Do you know who had the best average finish at the 2 Texas races last year? Do you guys know this? It's Daniel Suarez.
Wow.
He average finished third at both the Texas races last year. Incredible. Second, one of the hottest drivers on circuit. I can't believe it, but Eric Almirola was great at Texas last year. So I'm hoping to get a good matchup with Almirola, hoping the value is still there. Hope the cat's not out of the bag with some of the books. And Boyer's really good here as well. I continue to think that there's good value on Clint Boyer. But yeah, I hope they keep throwing out this Harvick over Kyle Busch matchup because it keeps cashing. And I know, they keep saying, it's gonna be Kyle's so good at this track in the past. There's something off with that team and that car. They can't get it together. They can't get out of their own way. And even when Kyle did wreck, he was back in the back. He was not good. So I'll be looking at a good matchup. We got Blaney at plus money last week, which is amazing. I mean, he's one of the top 3 guys on circuit right now, and you're getting him at plus money. So I'll be looking at the Harvick matchup, Blaney matchup, Almirola, Boyer, those guys.
Yeah, and by the way, the fastest average green flag lap at Kentucky last Sunday was Ryan Blaney, who had a gear shift that would not even stay in gear, and he still ran the average fastest laps, and that hurt him on a few laps because he fell back. So that's how fast he's been. The fact he almost won the race concerns me, Andy, because, is the value gone? But it really is not, I don't think, because, he was only like 6th or 7th favorite last week going into that race. He was like at 12-1.
Yeah, and Rocky made a great call with Brad over Joey Logano. So, as long as they keep throwing Logano in some of these matchups, that's another guy that's just been a big disappointment. Rocky really hit the nail on the head with that one. So I'd love to get a Blaney over Logano or Brad over Logano again.
Yeah, and like I said, we all agreed with him with Keselowski over Logano. You were laying 130 to 140 with that. I got Blaney, as you said, like at even minus 105, even money, plus money some spots over Logano. So they're saying Keselowski is 40 cents better than Blaney right now. Now, the reason, of course, is because it's a head-to-head match. And as you just said, Keselowski got more with less. Blaney almost got less with more, as he does every week. He took the fastest car and almost had a problem. Whereas Keselowski, once again finished. And you're right, Harvick and Keselowski really were not running top 10 for a good amount of that race. By the way, one guy you might mention, I don't want to steal the thunder, you guys might bring him up, but Truex Jr. is someone I want to throw out because he had to start in the rear, and he still almost won the race. So, he's great on these types of tracks, and he and Harvick the last few years have been the best drivers on these tracks, even better than Kyle Busch when he was running well. And we keep talking about Kyle Busch. He's not only is he not only the number 1 guy right now, but he's not even the number 1 or 2 guy on his own team. Both Truex and Hamlin have been faster on his own team on these tracks. So we're talking about Kyle Busch, who keeps coming off at 5 or 6 to 1 to win a race, and he's only 3rd best on his own team. Whereas Blaney's considered 3rd best. He's really the fastest guy on that team recently, and he's at 12 to 1. So yeah, you have to start looking at the numbers, and that's one of the reasons I won't be using Kyle Busch this week. Rocky, what do you think?
I'm gonna be going with Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch, he has got 1 win, 3 top 5s, 21 top 10 finishes in 34 races here in Texas. Average finish 14.2 at this track. Over the past 6 races here, Kurt has 6 top 10 finishes, average finish of 8.5. So I'm looking at Kurt Busch there. I'm gonna be careful going against Logano in Texas. I know y'all were just talking about possible playing against him. I'm gonna be careful myself with that. I just feel like this possibly could be a good track for him, and maybe to get him back on track. I'm also looking at Denny Hamlin. Hamlin's got 3 wins, 7 top 5s, 13 top 10s, and 28 races here in Texas. Average finish 13.8 at this track. So that's my top 3: Harvick, Kurt Busch, and Denny Hamlin.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Steve. What was up with? We've seen this several times with the Gibbs teams where, for whatever reason, Truex car is set up amazing, and then everyone else's car is terrible. Like Hamlin was awful, and Kyle was awful. I don't understand how teams can have that one car that is just so much better on that track. But I would look for a nice bounce back from Hamlin. I couldn't believe watching Hamlin stuck back there with Kyle Busch. We've seen this with Truex. He's not good on these big flat tracks, but for whatever reason, he loves those cookie cutters, and they somehow get that setup on his car good. So.
Yeah, well, if you look at there's been 44 races the last 3.5 years now in these mile-and-a-half intermediates. So it's by far the biggest chunk of data we have. And Truex has an average finish of 6.5 in 44 races, the best of anybody. Harvick is about 8.5. Harvick has the best driver rating at 115, Truex at 113. So that's, like I said earlier, it's been Harvick and Truex statistically the last 3 years. And Truex came from behind last week, and on the final restart, it's Harvick and Truex. So really, sometimes we overthink it. It really goes down to this. Kyle Busch obviously is up there. He's third best average finish, but we got to be careful with him. But yeah, Rocky, I agree with you on Logano. I don't think I'd be going against him this week with Blaney. That was, Kentucky last week, but for some reason, he's really good at Texas. They're all mile-and-a-halves, but they're all a little bit different with the banking and everything. So some drivers have a better feel or better setup notes. Logano, 5 top 5s out of the last 6 starts here the last 3 years. That's pretty tough. And Blaney's actually ahead of him, though, by a couple points in driver rating. Blaney's second, Logano's third. So look to use them both, but maybe against other drivers. Andy, who's someone else you're looking at? You mentioned Hamlin. He's been decent. I've always left him off these tracks because Kyle Busch and Truex have always been better on his own team. But like you said, he ran okay without his crew chief, and he's been almost unstoppable recently with his crew chief back.
I'll give you a guy to fade. I mean, Rocky and I have been all over fading Alex Bowman. I mean, sometimes there's guys you want to bet on and guys you want to bet against. He was awful again. What was he, 19th? I think he finished last week. He's just been really, really bad, and it seems like he's in a good car, but for whatever reason, I mean, his average finish, I pulled the results of Kentucky, Homestead, Atlanta, and Charlotte. He's not even in the top 20 with finishes. I mean, he's behind guys like Custer and Byron, and even Stenhouse and Newman are average finishing ahead of him. So as long as these books keep throwing out these Alex Bowman matchups, it's a guy I'm going to look to fade if the price is right.
Yeah, I've talked about this a few times now. Bowman's been really, really tricky for me this year because first impressions carry so much weight, and sometimes they can really screw you up in life and handicapping and anything. He dominated the 2-mile track at California earlier this year, just dominated that race, led the most laps, start to finish, won the race. We come back from the shutdown. We only had, 4 races. He looks really good in the first race back at Darlington. He's second best to only Kevin Harvick, who dominates those type of tracks. So after 6 races, Bowman had been the best car almost in 2 of the 6. So I just can't get that out of my mind. So I used him a few times, lost, didn't play against him since. Rocky jumped on board early and played against him. He's made a lot of money for his clients doing that. But you're right. I see those good runs from him and William Byron and those other guys like Jimmy Johnson at times, and I know they have it in them, and it's kept me from a lot of winners by playing against them. But yeah, recently Bowman was 9th fastest at Kentucky, by the way, average green flag. Homestead 17th a few weeks ago. So he's barely a top 10 car at best. And then on top of that, he has the inconsistency problems that these young drivers have, like Bowman and Byron. So yeah, you're right. I mean, the numbers recently have trumped those numbers from earlier this season. Rocky, do you have a play against guy, another play on guy? What are you looking at?
There wasn't any matchups up whenever I looked earlier for Texas. It looks like they're concentrating on the All-Star race tonight. So the only thing I've got is be looking to play on Harvick, maybe against somebody. It's according to who they match him up with. It's according to what the line is when it comes out. But I know you just mentioned Bowman playing against Bowman. Seems like the books, they're continuing to put out the matchups with Bowman against a lot of drivers. I like about 5 drivers over him last week, but I kind of got scared off. I just used Kurt Busch over him. But at some point, I think Bowman's going to come back and have a decent run. I don't know if this is the track for him. I'm sure I'm probably going to fade him again this week.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are.
But the books, they'll put the matchups out there, but then they'll wait until Sunday morning to actually put the line on it.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to wait until Sunday morning to release, and that's what I had to do this past Sunday when I found Kurt Busch even against him. So it may be Sunday before I'm able to release anything. Long shot to win this week. I'm looking at Jimmy Johnson. Just think Johnson, again, we've talked about it before. I've talked about it. I think he's going to go out with a win at some point. This is a decent track for him, actually a real good track. He's had 7 wins here, 16 top 5 finishes, 22 top 10s in 33 races here in Texas. Average finish of 10.4 at this track. So don't be surprised if Jimmy's not running top front at the front of the pack here this weekend.
Yeah, I like where you're going with that. I mentioned, just now Bowman and Byron and Johnson. They've, of course, Chase Elliott's been great this year. Let's not forget Chase Elliott's their teammate. I think Blaney and Elliott have probably been the fastest cars all season. Harvick and Keselowski are the most consistent, but Elliott and Blaney have been unbelievably fast. And we saw from the start at Darlington after the shutdown, Charlotte, Byron, Johnson, Bowman, they were fast on these types of tracks. I do feel like the other teams have caught up a bit, like Gibbs and Penske. But I agree, Rocky. I think Johnson wins a race this year. And we saw that with Tony Stewart in his swan song season. We saw it with Jeff Gordon. And you could probably make an argument Johnson's been better this year than both of them so far in their swan song seasons. So I think he's worth a look. And that's why I'm nervous playing against any of those Hendrick drivers, even though these other teams have been faster. Hey, Andy, one guy I want to throw out to you, I guess this will count as my long shot, is Matt DiBenedetto. You mentioned him for the possible Open to get into the All-Star race tonight. He deserves to be in the All-Star race. I mean, this guy is a good driver. He's never had the equipment or the teams before. He's got it with Woods Brothers Racing. And what's impressive to me, this is like when Truex was on the 78 team. They were kind of a Gibbs car, but they weren't quite a Gibbs car. And he was dominating, winning championships, basically. And, the Woods Brothers are a good team, but they're not one of the big boys. So that just shows to me how good DiBenedetto is, that he's on a mediocre team that's kind of on the outside looking in, and he's still running top 10 almost every race. He was second fastest at Homestead a few weeks ago, 8th fastest at Kentucky, 8th and 9th fastest at the 2 Pocono races. I mean, this guy, unfortunately, we're not getting a lot of head-to-head matchups with him, but he's been cashing those as well because he's usually against a lesser driver. Andy, you got anybody else you're looking at, maybe a long shot like that?
Yeah, DiBenedetto was one I had my eye on. I was hoping to get a juicy matchup for the clients. I guess I could scroll down here.
Almirola, I think, too. We haven't talked. We keep mentioning him, but I want to throw him out, too. I mean, I think the odds makers are definitely undervaluing him still.
Yeah, he's undervalued. Just it all depends on who the matchups come out against.
Right.
I also just think that Eric Jones is too good to keep having some of these finishes that he does.
I know he's been my Blaney. Jones and Blaney have been my kryptonites and my play-ons every.
Yeah, so it feels like he's got a good car, and then all of a sudden he's finishing 22nd. So I mean, if the finishes aren't there, they're just not there. But it feels different than Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch is just flat out not running well. Where it feels like Jones is running okay, and then something weird happens with him. He's probably a stay away though. If a guy's in bad luck, it's a lot easier to predict him to have more bad luck than to say, well, this is the week he turns it around. DiBenedetto was the guy I was going to mention last. So I'm with you for sure, hoping to get a great matchup. But knowing our luck, it'll be Almirola versus DiBenedetto because the books are sneaky like that.
Well, they are sneaky, and that's something I want to point out. One thing that's very frustrating for me about NASCAR handicapping is that there's no universal matchups. Every book has different matchups. So when you release something, occasionally a client can't get it, although most people can shop around if they have a couple books. But the good news about that, and this is for the viewers more, you guys know this, the key to winning in sports is finding an edge, of course, and all you have to do is look at the limits, the house limits, and how early they post lines to know which sports are beatable. And if that's the indicator, then NASCAR is the most beatable sport. Because like Rocky said, they don't put odds up for a lot of these matchups until Sunday morning, 3 or 4 hours before the race. We get NFL lines up before the game's finished the previous week. NFL limits are $50,000. They might be $500 on a NASCAR matchup at the same book. So that tells you all you need to know. These are beatable, and it's not a coincidence that Rocky and Andy are crushing it this year once again in NASCAR. And, I'll throw out the promo code again in case somebody's joining us late. It's a $100 discount off the next year, this year and into next year, of NASCAR Best Bets. 365 days of NASCAR Best Bets, and you get a $100 discount. Texas, we're at Texas this week, so it's TX 2020. TX 2020. You go to sportsmemo.com for Rocky. You go to wagertalk.com for Andy. Promo code TX 2020, and you get a $100 discount of their Best Bets. Once again, Rocky's at sportsmemo.com. Andy's at wagertalk.com. TX 2020. I guess we'll start to wrap it up, guys. As you mentioned, there's no head-to-head matchups. I think we've all kind of given our play-on, play-against. I'll just open the floor. Do you guys have anything else you want to throw out for Texas this week on the way out?
Yeah, just a super fast track. It can be boring, so don't be surprised if there's a long green flag run in the middle. But again, those help us handicappers because you get a lot less volatility and a little bit more predictability, but this race can be very fast, very long, very boring. So don't expect a lot of fireworks until the very end.
Hey, by the way, I'm looking at one of the New Jersey books, and I did find matchups for this Sunday. It's the only one I found.
Oh, wow.
And guess what, Andy?
No.
Eric Jones versus Matt DiBenedetto is the matchup.
Hey, I like the Benedetto in that one. Absolutely.
He's even money. He's even money. Jones is minus 130.
Wait, Jones is the favorite? Oh, that's a mistake. That's a mistake.
Well, I like both. Those are both kind of play-on guys. We were saying.
I would go against Jones in that one for sure. So I'll take the guy who's on a skid.
Rocky, I think I found a free winner for you. I'll let you use this one. Well, first of all, we got Almirola against Kurt Busch.
Ooh.
Almirola 120, Kurt Busch minus 110. That's a tough one. But this is for you, Rocky. Eric Almirola against Alex Bowman, head-to-head. Unfortunately, they've got it priced pretty good. Almirola's minus 155. Bowman plus 115. It's a 40-cent gap there. But Rocky, would you still lay that juice? Would you lay minus 155 with Almirola, Rocky, over Bowman?
No, I would lean that way, but my cutoff is minus 150. I never release anything over minus 150. Sometimes it moves above that after the release, after my clients start playing it and everything. But that would be one I would just skip because it's above my cutoff.
Yeah, and I think it's good to have a cutoff. I mean, I do that with baseball, of course, with money line favorites. And like you said, more times than not, the odds are going to move against you as well. So you're leaving a little wiggle room. You know, Rocky's saying it's okay to play 160 maybe, but he's assuming he's the sharp money. He knows the odds are going to move 9 out of 10 times against him, as is Andy Lang's picks, because, as I said, this is a small market. These guys are the sharp money, and the limits are low. So it's another reason to watch this show on Wednesday. Keep an eye on your sports book, and when the odds come out, jump on them. I mean, Andy gets his picks up nice and early. Rocky gets them up before the race as well. You got time to do this. You know, once the information is available, these guys get their picks up at sportsmemo.com and wagertalk.com. And once again, that promo code TX2020. On the way out, guys, I'm just glancing at these matchup odds to see if there's anything else I want to throw at you. Rocky, for you, Harvick against Hamlin. Minus 165 against Hamlin. This is a 40-cent line. I'm not going to throw this book under the bus. It's a New Jersey book. A lot of people probably can't bet it anyway. But they've got 40-cent gaps here. So no wonder why they're the bold one that are putting these odds up early, because 40-cent window. Harvick minus 160 against Kyle Busch plus 120. Wow. We do get this. This is interesting, guys. Hamlin minus 120, Kyle Busch minus 110. You know, once again, it's hard for me to play against Busch. I'm not going to use him, but it's hard to fade him. But Hamlin's been the better driver. Truex Jr. minus 130, even. Ryan Blaney, even money. And then Truex against Chase Elliott, Blaney against Chase Elliott. Some interesting stuff. I will say this. So this book normally doesn't correlate with the offshore, so I'm not sure we're going to see these exact matchups, so don't get too excited or waste too much time on it. But anyway, guys, that's a good show. I mean, I think we got a lot in. We got 3 different tracks covered in 50 minutes here, so we'll leave it at that. But a reminder to the viewers, we'll be back next Wednesday. We got Texas in on this show, so we're good till Sunday. We're going to be back next Wednesday, July 22nd, as we're getting into July here, and we'll have more NASCAR for you. In the meantime, go to wagertalk.com for Andy Lang's picks. Go to sportsmemo.com for Rocky Atkinson's picks, and be sure to use promo code TX2020 for Texas. TX2020, $100 discount for the next full year of NASCAR Best Bets from these great NASCAR handicappers. Andy, thank you. Rocky, thank you. Great show as always, guys. And we'll be back next Wednesday live, 2 p.m. Eastern here on